You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, or on our YouTube channel, all over social media, or our morning newsletter, KCSN Daily, dedicated to your Kansas City Chiefs. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? We are here for an emergency live show. As we were hopping off the Outside the Trenches podcast, the news came through that the Chiefs are making a trade. This first report comes from, let's see if I can find it here, Jordan Schultz. Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs, a source tells the score. Chiefs trade their conditional third-round pick to sixth round pick to the Giants. I believe that that's been since amended on what the compensation was. Here to join me is Maddie Lane to give our live reactions to the Chiefs trading for Giants wide receiver Kadarius Toney. Drop your comments in the comment section. Give us your thoughts. We'll throw them up on screen. Maddie, how are you doing?
I was on 810 Sports Radio. We are just wrapping up a segment on 810, and then I saw the tweet and I ignored it because it coming from Jordan Schultz, who did break this news, and he has been very good at his job, but there's also been times where it hasn't been entirely accurate. So I was just waiting. I was waiting for confirmation, and then it trickled in. And so there's live reaction happening on the radio, and it's just slowly news coming in. And so now we're here. The Chiefs have traded for Kadarius Toney, and wow, that was my reaction. Was wow. I trying to get all the pieces of this put together. Something like just quickly, you go jump to see what he's done in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. Not much of anything. Now, he was a first-round pick, only a year and a half removed from being such. So trading, a third and a sixth-round pick on the surface of that looks pretty good. But the guy has done very minimal at the NFL level. Even in college, he wasn't productive until he was a senior and older than everybody else. So it's an interesting move for a oft injured player that has not proven a whole lot on the football field, whether it's in college or the NFL at this point in time.
I see a lot of comments in the comment section. Thank you guys for commenting and leaving your thoughts and reactions. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as if there is more news when we get closer to the trade deadline, we will be live breaking it down like we are here. A lot of people in the comment section, Maddie, saying punt returner one. This is from Kyle Coffey. That's kind of a lot of people's first reactions, but when you start to dive in deeper, Maddie, what did you find?
He hasn't returned that many kicks and punts, guys. He just really hasn't. Even going back to college, he was a good returner in terms of kick and punt return average, but his most returns on punts in a year was 11 as a senior. And then he had 7 kick returns that year. He didn't really return that much at Florida. So, okay, you say maybe in the NFL he did. For the Giants, if I remember right, I don't think he returned at all. And if it was just one here or there. I'm trying to search through to make sure I find it here. Yeah, 1 punt return with the Giants. I do not understand the belief that he's going to come in right away and be a punt returner. Can he? Sure. Absolutely. It's quite possible. He's a great in the open field, explosive, dynamic player, but that's also kind of what Sky Moore is. Kadarius Toney's probably better at that. Right. But we've seen the issue with Moore isn't the actual running of the returns, it's the receiving of them. Kadarius Toney doesn't have that much more experience doing it. So I don't know if that's the thing that we put in bold at the top of this acquisition list.
Information is still coming in from this trade, obviously. Just came through. Leave your comments in the comment section below in the chat. We'll make sure that we throw them up there. But I believe, this is kind of a shocking move. And from my point, I didn't really see the Chiefs going out and grabbing a wide receiver, but they do. They end up getting Kadarius Toney from the New York Giants. An interesting tweet here I found from Field Yates. Kadarius Toney is under contract through 2024 with a 2025 team option as well. His salary and cap hit for the next 3 years is the rest of this year, $748,000, $1.9 million, $2.5 million for 2024. And Maddie, you mentioned this off the top. Availability is the best ability. That necessarily hasn't been the case for Kadarius Toney. He's missed 12 games already. and that's kind of an issue that we're going to have moving forward. But a lot of people I see in the comments here, I mean, we got a lot of comments running through here in the chat, but I saw somebody bring in a thought of like, maybe this is a long-term play. Do you think that this is more of a long-term play than a 2023 play?
That makes the most sense, right? You're looking at the Chiefs wide receiver room right now. Only two guys are under contract going forward. That's MVS, right. Sky Moore. Sky Moore, as of now, hasn't done a whole lot at the NFL level either. MVS, they technically can get out of the contract after this year, but very much so after next year. So Kadarius Toney does come into a very light wide receiver room next year. And even more than that, McCole Hardman is not under contract next year. His contract's over. He's probably hitting free agency. You are looking for a way to come in and replace a lot of what he does. I think that's the most direct one-to-one replacement of usage that Toney that makes the most sense. The jet sweeps, wide receiver screens, that's the stuff that Toney's actively good at. So looking at the future in that regard, it 100% makes sense to have a guy like him on board if you have to replace McCole Hardman going forward.
Absolutely. And we got somebody else that is going to join the conversation here. That is BJ Kissel, founder and all things. We just got off a show. BJ, I was saying this at the top. We literally just got off a show, and then the Chiefs make a move. What kind of timing is that?
It was intentional. I think Jordan Schultz was waiting for our show to end in the last question saying, do you expect them to make a move? It's like, probably not. But if they do, it's definitely going to be edge rusher. And then they come on and they make a move on the offensive side of the ball. And, you know, when things like this happen, guys, I know you're talking I caught the tail end of what you guys are talking about and being realistic about everything. But I just look at it as if Andy Reid wants another toy to play with, wants another athletic dude that can get out in space, I'm going to be all in with these kinds of moves. The compensation to me is a lot, but the more you dissect it, and I saw a tweet from KP show, an old buddy, and he was having a conversation with Ben Solak. So I don't want to steal this as my own, Maddie, but I know you were just mentioning it, that the fact that McCole is a free agent after this year, and the fact that Sky Moore, not that he's not coming along, we have not had enough time with Sky Moore of seeing him to know that, but it's insurance with Sky Moore and it's insurance with the situation of McCole, maybe not getting extended, not bringing back, that they really don't have a lot of guys and skill position players on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver or whatever you want to call him beyond this year under contract besides MVS and Sky Moore. That's it. Juju's a free agent. McCole Hardman's a free agent. Justin Watson, for what he's done, is a free agent. So you get this guy, you get a talent like that. Andy Reid's going to figure out a way to utilize him. He's young. You're not going to get a talent like this in the third round with that Ryan Poles pick, that compensatory pick. So Andy Reid wants this guy. Brett Veach wants this guy. This is a Brett Veach kind of move, an underrated or underperforming top pick that you can get for less value. Now it's about, can they make it work? And then the insurance with McCole being a free agent and Sky Moore's development, especially as a punt returner. I know you guys are just talking. He hasn't done it a lot. We've seen what Sky Moore is doing right now. If they don't want to give that to McCole, maybe Kadarius, whether it's this year, later in the year, or in future years, can develop into that role, because the explosiveness, all of that stuff has been there. Unless that's completely gone away during his time in New York, there's a lot to be intrigued about with this move.
I want to add a new tweet here from Tom Pelissero that just came across. New Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney's contract is fully guaranteed for about $5.2 million through 2024 plus a fifth-year option. So the Giants get that money off their books and pick up a third and sixth round picks, while KC bets on the upside of the 20th overall pick in the 2021 draft. Ken Swanson tweeted out your guys' grade on Kadarius Toney from the 2021 draft guide. Make sure you go check that out at Kent_Swanson. It feels like that there's a lot of talent here. And if he can stay on the field, it could be a very good move for the future. It's kind of where I've come to my thought process on the trade, that it could be a very good move for the future. Could be good for the guy's career too, to get out of New York and get into a system like Andy Reid's system. But Maddie, I'm curious kind of your thoughts. His first game is going to be, Chiefs are on a bye week this week, obviously. So his first game is going to be that Sunday night football game against the Titans. How much do we see him in that game?
Well, and I think the first hurdle is, what's his health at right now? Because he hasn't played, since September right now. And this was an issue he had last year. And if you go back to the offseason and look through, and I'm not in any kind of negative way, but there was a lot of rumors that some people in the Giants building didn't think the injuries were as serious as they were in terms of making him miss that much time. Now he came back and he started the season, but then he hasn't played since September. So has he been held out while healthy, or is there something lingering right now? So like the first thing we have to do is make sure he passes the physical, and then he gets out here and starts to get incorporated. I mean, I've seen Andy Reid take guys that are a lot less athletic than Kadarius Toney and find a way to get them the ball in very efficient ways very quickly. So like, I think they will have some kind of role for
All right, we've lost Maddie. Before we'll let Maddie's internet catch back up out there in rural.
Struggling, isn't it?
All right, Tucker, let's pull him out. And I want to ask you, I want to go back to this. So what did you say his contract was for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's a $5 million fully guaranteed is what 5.2 through 2024 plus a 5th-year option. And I retweeted something from Field Yates, what I thought was really interesting. His salary cap for the rest of the season, $784,000. Doesn't make a huge dent this year. They still have some cap to make some room, but not a huge contract overall.
So you're looking at $5 million over the next couple of seasons. I mean, that's
right.
Averaging out to $2.5 million a year is what you would pay a third down running back. I mean, you looking back to the contracts that like Sharkandrick West and Spencer Ware got, they were getting like $3 million a year. So you're paying a talent like this money to be a solid. Your solid special teamers will get $4 to $5 million a year. So from a contract standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world to take an upside on a player like this with this skill set. And how many plays do we really need to see from him down the stretch or even in the playoffs? He makes one big play in each playoff game. Financially, it's worth it. Like, you scheme up some plays, and we know Andy Reid can get guys open. You know, the screen game, the different things that they're doing. This is putting more stress on a defense, on a player you have to worry about, and you can't give him too much space. Similar in that Tyreek couldn't be given space, and defensive coordinators trying to figure out how can we keep bodies around him so they don't have too much space to make a play. I don't think we need to see 100-yard games from this guy for it to be worth it. We need some big plays and some big moments. And Andy Reid knows how to dial up that better than anyone in the league.
Absolutely. And I think, BJ, when you came on and you made the point, just another toy for Andy Reid to play with. It's another toy for Patrick Mahomes too. And we talk about that a lot, as you like to give, like a kid on Christmas, you want to give Patrick Mahomes a new toy to play with almost every year. But his impact could be huge. I'd love to see him stay healthy. Love to see him pass that physical. I'm curious, BJ, your thoughts on the compensation. We talked about it a little bit. Conditional third-round pick, a 6th-round pick. I think it evens out to about a 5th-round pick is what somebody was saying that I saw. I'll have to find that tweet again, but I think that's about where it levels out. What are your thoughts on that compensation?
I don't think it's kind of shocking now just looking at it, because we've been talking about giving up picks for like an edge rusher and a position that people would think would be more valuable to the team right now. But, to me, this signifies like they weren't going to give Odell Beckham Jr. a certain amount of money for a half-a-year rental or whatever that was going to end up being. Now you've got a more explosive player at this point in his career, not as good of a receiver. I mean, we're not making that kind of comparison, but a more explosive receiver, to your point, under contract beyond this year for 2 years for a total of $5 million. The value is absolutely there if they can get him on the field. And if they get him on the field, he's going to make enough plays just with his pure athleticism that I think that will warrant the contract. It's just, for me, it's the draft picks compared to mentally we were all thinking defense, especially edge rusher. Frank Clark's got a couple game suspension with the trade deadline coming up. That part of it surprised me a little bit, knowing that it's a couple of picks, but again, it's the compensatory pick for Ryan Poles and then that 6th round. So I think this is going to be one of those, we're going to overanalyze it. And then the second that he gets an open space and puts up like a 40-yard play and shows the burst, we're going to be like, oh, well, all right. Well, that makes sense then. So I know that there's a lot of defensive coordinators around the league that are probably a little worried that are playing the Chiefs coming up, just being like, man, if they can get him, if he can be on the field and if they can stay healthy, Andy Reid and Brett Veach and them may have just pulled something off. But there's a big if here with health and his ability to pick up the offense. It's going to be a package play kind of deal with him. He's not going to be an every down guy out there getting it. But if he could develop even to a solid special teams player from a financial standpoint, it fits. And you're not going to get a talent like that in the 3rd round in any draft.
Right. Absolutely. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you are enjoying the content. Let us know in the chat if you like the trade, your thoughts on the trade. And one of these comments here is as we bring Matty Lane back on, he's got his internet figured out as what it looks like here. But
Something like
I want
that.
to bring up this comment here from Jerry Jones. How much cap is left for other moves? It was estimated the Chiefs had just under that $4 million. Now, as I read from Field Yates, it's only about $784,000 for Kadarius Toney this season. Chiefs still have a little bit of extra cap space. I'm not sure how much they can really mess with or play with when it comes to that department. But now this has happened. Do you expect, Maddie, I want to know your thoughts. Do you expect the Chiefs to make any more trades?
Do I expect it? No. I think it would be kind of hard to expect it right now. I will say, if for some reason a McCole Hardman traded away comes after this, the move would make a lot more sense to me because of the overlapping nature of these two guys and their roles. And if you are able to recoup either draft picks, if it's involving a veteran defensive end that might be able to help you this year, like I would enjoy that line of thinking, but would I expect it? Absolutely not. Like the Chiefs are not a big mid-season moves kind of team. They like to have everybody get on the same page. So even a move this big by itself, I think was more than I would have anticipated this year. So a second one to follow it, I would be pretty shocked. But like I said, that's the one thing I got my eye on right now is just, do they plan on keeping all of the wide receivers that they have right now?
BJ, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I caught the tail end of it. I was trying to pick up Kadarius Toney in my fantasy league real fast. Swear to God, he's already on a team. Somebody had held on to him from the draft, but yeah, I'd be really interested to know, like, McCole Hardman's thoughts right now, being his skill set and kind of he was already going to be a really interesting contract situation on how much would they value what he's bringing to the offense right now from he hits free agency. What kind of contract does he get? Be really interesting to see what that looks like. But again, if you look at the money, it doesn't have to be a McCole Hardman replacement because you're paying him what you would pay a really good special teams returner or even just an average veteran returner. And I mean, $2.5 million over 2 years. I mean, $5 million, $2.5 million a year. That's what you pay like an average veteran special teams player. So if he can get out there and find a role on offense and maybe work his way into, returning punts or returning kicks or all that with his skill set, then it's even more value. But, I think that it's more of a gamble. And I don't think it's a very calculated gamble with his skill set. It's not a lot of money. The picks is where it's weird for me to give up a 3rd round pick for a player like this, but you're not going to get a talent like this. You're not going to get a skill set like that. And if they can develop him, if he can make 6 to 10 plays over the next 2.5 years, I mean, the contract will validate that. And I don't think, again, we're going to find a player with that burst, that explosiveness. If you're looking at the best case scenario, you can't find that guy in the 3rd round. There's no doubt about that. And giving up a couple mid-round picks, yes, they're valuable, but getting a guy like that in open space against the Bills in a playoff game where he picks up a key 35, 40-yard play, no one's going to think twice about a couple mid-round picks, and the money makes sense anyway. So,
yep. Tom Pelissaro tweeted out, Chiefs got two third-round compensatory picks for losing Ryan Poles to the Bears GM job. They turned one of them plus a 6th-rounder into a former 1st-round pick, Kadarius Toney. We've been talking about that, who has been sidelined with a hamstring injury. And for clarity, just want to clarify this up. Both picks Kansas City sent to the Giants are in 2023. They're all both this year picks. And the 3rd-rounder is not conditional. It's a compensatory. So I think the initial language around it was conditional. It's a compensatory 3rd round. It is that Ryan Poles pick is what it is. Just for clarifications, if you're just tuning in, Kansas City Chiefs traded for Kadarius Toney, not conditional, a 3rd round, a compensatory 3rd round, and a 6th-round pick for Kadarius Toney to the New York Giants. Patrick Mahomes have another weapon to play with. He tweeted out a GIF of The Rock. I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter. He tweeted out a GIF of The Rock smiling. So listen, if Pat's happy, I'm going to be happy. That's just kind of how I like to operate. But yeah, it seems like a lot of mixed reactions to this trade. I think at first my reaction was kind of confused. But as we kind of as we've talked through it, hopefully we've kind of helped you guys maybe rationalize it a little bit more, understand the reasoning behind Brett Veach, Andy Reid and company with the amount of years they still have on Kadarius Toney. Kind of, you look at the wide receiver room too, not a lot of years left on those contracts in that wide receiver room. So hopefully this brings some stability into that receiver room as well. And we're getting into that time where trade deadline quickly approaching November the 1st, Tuesday. I believe it's at 3 p.m. Central Time is when the deadline is. They really need to have him in by Halloween on Monday. So to make the league know, Robert Quinn was traded. I know we've had a lot of talks about defensive ends here in Kansas City. It seems like that's every year. It's defensive end. They need to trade for a defensive end. Not a ton on the market. We'll also have that conversation with Joshua Briscoe. We talk about a little bit more defensive ends in particularly on our KCSN update. But I think that go ahead.
No, I just want to bring this up because I think this is a good point. I saw this on Twitter. Is there a way that you ever look at this, even if it doesn't work, if he doesn't get on the field, doesn't stay healthy, whatever it is, can you look at this and be like, man, they failed big time here. It's not a lot of money. It's a couple mid-round pick. The third-round pick, if you get it right, is valuable, but you're taking a shot at a talent that you have under control, under contract for 2.5 years. Is there a scenario here in which we're going to be complaining that this move really set us back in any kind of way?
I don't think there's no chance for it to set the team back per se. Like, right. There's even if he doesn't play it down for the Chiefs because he can't get on the field or whatever, you're not going to be set back by losing a compensatory pick in the 3rd round and a 6th round pick. No, yeah, one of them is a top 100 pick, and the Chiefs have found plenty of value right around there. So I guess the only thing you do is you look at what you potentially missed out on. Tucker had a great point, and you don't know if the Chiefs were interested or weren't. Robert Quinn went for a 4th round pick, and we'll see what he does with the Eagles. But like, you're just going to be sitting here if Toney doesn't work out, thinking, well, what could they have got for a 3rd round pick instead of him that maybe would have made more sense for the team, but nothing tangible that will be a huge negative. It's just a matter of what else could it potentially have been used on instead.
Tucker, Mike, sorry, did you see this? I know that the Bears ate a little bit of Robert Quinn's contract as well.
They did.
How much of that did they eat? And would the Chiefs even have been able to do that with their cap situation? And I don't know. I'm asking.
If I remember correctly, the Eagles it was like roughly a little over $1 million that they had to pay. They are not paying hardly any of it. And the Chiefs would have been able to afford it if the Bears ate the same amount.
It's like if the Chiefs wanted to give up, I wonder if their asking price, they just went to him like, we'll give you a 5th. Because again, it's a 34-year-old pass rusher. How much for a year? How much are you really wanting to give up? We talk about Kadarius Toney, a little bit more team control on Kadarius Toney that you can feel a little bit more comfortable with giving up a 3rd and a 6th round for about 3 or 4 more years of control than maybe just a 1-year rental on Robert Quinn. I definitely see the reasoning there. Now, would I have probably given up a 4th for Robert Quinn? Probably, but I'm not an NFL GM, so I can't make that decision. I saw a funny comment here from Caleb Cassidy. Don't we have like 15 picks this year? Who cares? We have 12. I caught that up at the end. Well, probably not now. 10 now, but we still have a lot of picks in Kansas City for the NFL draft. No worries. I'm sure that the Chiefs will make picks when the draft is in Kansas City. No worry about that.
I'm going to scare fans real quick. Go ahead. I just want to scare fans real quick. My longest lasting memory of Kadarius Toney was at the Senior Bowl, watching him field and drop punt after punt. It was in the wind and he wasn't fully, it wasn't like a special teams thing, but they were just punting and he was right in front of us and he was just dropping punt after punt when he was just fielding them during practice at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Lob that out there for everybody.
I'm going to flip side for the Kool-Aid drinkers on the other side is that I don't envision it's a much higher likely scenario that people are asking, how in the hell did the Chiefs get a talent like that for $5 million and only giving up a couple mid-round picks? Rather than, man, this really set them back. It would take a 3rd round pick that they gave up, the compensatory pick, somebody being drafted or some player that everyone loved. 2 years later, that player being an all-pro and Toney never having made a player worked out in a big high leverage situation for it to be an actual scenario of like, man, they really screwed up because if they had kept that pick and maybe taken that guy and maybe developed him the same way, you can't get a talent like this and a skill set like that. So the more you think about it, this is very much a Brett Veach type of move to get a talent and athleticism like that, not paying a lot and giving up some mid-round picks.
Yeah, I know that there's some. I think overall, I just saw this tweet come through from Peter Schrager. For New York, new GM, new head coach. Toney wasn't their guy. For the Chiefs, a third-round pick was a compensation for Ryan Poles, and the 6 will be late. Still have a 1, 2, 3, 2 4s, a 5, a 6, and a 7 in the 2023 draft. Good money too. He digs it for both sides. I think it does kind of make sense. Kent Swanson also just retweeted out the picks that the Chiefs have in this draft. So still have plenty of draft capital. Don't worry about that, Chiefs Kingdom. There's going to be plenty of draft capital. And I think, BJ, you make a really good point about the control is just a good thing. And it's just, there's just I just feel like it's kind of as someone who likes to sports bet, right? This seems like a very low risk for a very high reward. Yeah. If you lose out on Kadarius Toney, you're not gonna ruin your franchise by giving up a 3rd and a 6th, right? You're not gonna give up that. And if he works out, it might help your franchise win a Super Bowl. So it's one of those circumstances right there.
If he's your 6th wide receiver on the roster at $2.5 million, like we said, 1.9 million next year, and then 2.5 the next year, like
and I wish I remember who it came from. I saw this tweet earlier this week. They were just theorizing that GMs might see these comp picks that are coming back for players, but especially coaches or front office personnel that go out as bonuses. They're not like necessarily, they're just theorizing. This is no way a fact, but they were just wondering if teams aren't taking this compensatory pick for Ryan Poles being hired out as this is part of our draft capital that we're going into, every year with. This is just a bonus pick to play around with. And if that's the case, if that is a real approach, there's a little bit there too that like, okay, you're just using a bonus pick to, as you guys have said, to get this elite physical talent in the building plus a 6th-round pick. Who cares? One more other bonus. I don't know how much this stuff would be shared. Mike Kafka has a little bit of a relationship with the Chiefs coaching staff, right? He's been out there. He's seen what Kadarius Toney has done. You would like to think that if it's a complete, this guy does not care about football, he might give a friend a little heads up that this guy isn't, he's very injury prone. He's trying to quit. Because I just feel like Andy might still be able to have that kind of connection with Mike Kafka. So, there's just something that you could feel a little more comfortable knowing that somebody that's been in Kansas City has also seen him as part of that staff. And I'm sure he's not giving inside information, but just that you would hope that would come up if there was an issue there.
Right. Again, if you're just now tuning in, the Kansas City Chiefs have reportedly traded for Kadarius Toney, a 3rd round and a 6th round pick. The 3rd round pick is what they got for compensation for Ryan Poles taking the GM job for the Bears. We're breaking it down here on KC Sports Network. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying the show. Also, let us know in the comments your thoughts on this move. I know, Maddie, we kind of hit on it early. I don't know if we've talked about it a whole lot. Kadarius Toney seems a little injury prone. We said best abilities, availability. He's missed 12 games in his short career already. He's dealing with, I believe, a hamstring injury. Hasn't practiced for a while. So that's going to be a really big factor too, is getting him healthy. I know the Chiefs have got a good medical staff, so maybe that can help him out as well.
And that's what you're hoping for, right? You're hoping that whatever the injury history, whether it's significant, just all soft tissue injuries, whatever it may be, you hope you can get him healthy. You hope that it kind of rejuvenates his, desire. Because I know these were just questions that were written about, and you don't know, without knowing them or being in there, you don't know how serious they are. But you hope that he's getting to Kansas City with the right mentality to get healthy, get back on the field, learn this playbook and everything, and get ready to go. Because if he gets out on the field, at absolute worst, you have one of the more dynamic athletes in all of football. So you just got to get him there, hope that he's healthy. I imagine if he can't pass a physical, the trade gets sent back, right? That's usually how these things are going to work. So you're anticipating him at least passing the physical. And then now the Chiefs, for at least right now, have a full week to make sure he's healthy and getting him moving well. They don't have any rush as of now to get him on the field, so they can take as long as they need, just as much for the future it is now.
Yeah, and you have to look at the wide receiver market and what we've seen in free agency too, and what guys like Byron Pringle got last year. And again, going back to the picks, you're looking at a comp 3rd pick, and those are picks after the end of the 3rd round. So it's basically a 4th round pick that the Chiefs are getting. And you get to the 6th round after all the comp picks. It's almost like a 4 and a 7 that the Chiefs gave up for him, as much as I was looking at as a 3rd. You're looking at the bottom end of the 3rd round, the comp picks after the 3rd round is over. So again, it's not a 3rd round pick the way that we look at it being a top 100 pick. This is going to be right after the first 100. So, yeah, the more you think about it, I don't think that, there's anything negative that you can take with this move. It's a long-term play with having cost control for 2.5 years on a talent like that. And if he works out, you do the 5th-year option. But again, looking at some of the wide receiver contracts and what have been given out, take a chance with that talent, try to develop him, and you've got time. It's not like it's a half-year rental.
Right. One of my lasting memories of Kadarius Toney is him absolutely torching the Missouri Tigers as a Florida Gator. So I am fond. Really? We're gonna do that right now. But I think that his athleticism, no doubt, if he can get on the field, it's going to be great. I found a really good comment here from Pie Desert. What does this mean for Sky Moore's development with Kadarius Toney in the building? Does it have any impact on it? Does it impact it at all? I'm curious to what your guys' thoughts are.
Personally, I don't think it impacts it. If you look at where Sky Moore's been playing, one, it's been a slow drip. We haven't seen a lot, and maybe this means that there will be even less this year. I don't know, but it's not like Kadarius Toney's a super polished, ready to go out there and run routes receivers. Like if there's concerns over Sky Moore knowing when to cut off versus specific coverage, you're going to have the same concerns with Kadarius Toney. That was never his game. He hasn't played enough in the NFL to make that a strength either. And you look at the route Sky Moore runs, he's not being utilized in the areas that you would think of for Kadarius Toney, right? He's running a lot of these deep digs, a lot of slants, a lot of stuff on the backside of these 3-by-1 formations. Toney's essentially get the ball in his hands however you can right now. And that goes more to McCole. So I don't think there's going to be too much crossover there. You might lose a couple snaps on these RPO looks where you're running a bubble, like what we saw to close out the Buccaneers game down the stretch where they just threw the ball out to Sky Moore a couple times. Maybe those, but the overall usage, the two can easily coexist with entirely different skill sets.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with Sky Moore, because Sky Moore's ability to get on the field is his trust in Patrick Mahomes that he's going to be in the right place at the right time on their option routes. And to Maddie's point, breaking off, accelerating and decelerating through the ABC and the ABC windows, at different times, and just being in the place that Patrick Mahomes needs his guys to be. That has nothing to do with Sky Moore versus Kadarius Toney in that kind of way. They have different skill sets. I don't think they'd be utilized in the exact same ways. But yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with Sky Moore outside of maybe the punt return stuff. But Maddie, to your point, it's not like Kadarius Toney has done a lot of this or been really successful with this. I don't think they'd make this move like this for a punt returner right now. This is a talent you could never find. You couldn't get in the draft anywhere else, cost controlled, not costing you a lot of money. The guy makes 6 or 8 plays in the regular season, a couple plays in the playoffs, and it's a win in and of itself.
Yep. Had a comment here too from Grayson Jaspers. I think it's something we should talk about. Are you guys concerned at all with his character? Hate to bring it up, but there has been rumors about it. I've seen he does have a music career outside of football, which I think is good for people to have something outside of football, which to some people can be a problem. If he's going to go to an organization where if he has quote unquote character issues, it's probably the best organization for him to go to. I don't think that I'm concerned about those at all personally.
As long as they don't impact the play or the practice on the field. And I guess that's where, and again, it's all rumors. Nothing has been confirmed, but that was the concerns some Giants outlets had during the offseason was the music career or other off-field interests are impacting his work ethic on the field. Again, not confirmed. I'm not saying this is true whatsoever, but if that starts to come up, then you're obviously concerned. But the Chiefs feel comfortable enough. This is where I go back also to they know Kafka. If the Giants traded over a guy that's a complete dud that doesn't care to work at all, I don't see one of Andy's guys, like one of his actual guys, not giving him a slight heads up that there could be something to be worried about, and Andy's still signing off on it. Andy's known to handle guys with these not specific, but just different backgrounds and stuff like that. So I'm not overly concerned about it at this point.
This is where I see if I can articulate this point, Maddie, because it's exactly what you just said. I'm going to frame it in a different way. That this is where Andy Reid, having the relationships across the league that he does, matters. And it's not saying that it happened in this scenario, but they don't make a move like this if they didn't get some sort of confirmation on the person that they were bringing into that locker room. And when everyone in the league respects you to the point where you win a Super Bowl and every NFL coach is kind of happy, like Andy Reid got his Super Bowl and I was there when that happened, and the love and the respect for him is very real. And that coaches aren't going to lie. They're going to do what's best for their teams. Absolutely. But for a guy like you, to your point, Mike Kafka, he's going to give Andy the goods. And the Chiefs aren't going to make a move like this, bringing in a player that wasn't vetted or that they weren't comfortable bringing in to their locker room, especially as tight as it is right now. Plus, think about the opportunity. And granted, the Giants have been good. You know, they've turned things around. It's a much better scenario for them. But imagine the opportunity that Kadarius Toney and his agent are now talking about what he could do in Kansas City with this group and with Patrick Mahomes over the next 2.5 years to basically rework the start of his NFL career, which hasn't been great with the Giants. So it's a huge opportunity for him too. And the most important thing for Kadarius Toney is how good is he at Call of Duty and like Warzone? Like, can he be an asset to Patrick Mahomes, MVS, Juju, Kelsey, whoever else is playing these video games? Can he add some value to their squad to get some kills and win some,
get some dubs,
levels or whatever, get some dubs? I don't play.
I got some. Yeah, that's. I'll give you some poggers. Use that one every now and again. Okay. I've got something pulled up here, and it might be kind of fun for us to watch. This is probably, I think, Kadarius Toney's best game in the NFL, 189-yard game from 2021. He played. This is every catch from it. Shout out to the NFL for this video. Every single catch that he's had in his best game that he had as an NFL player. So some fun stuff going on here with Toney. Maybe not the best first play. But
I mentioned the punt return stuff from the Senior Bowl that year. He was also the best quarterback there. I will say he had the best arm out of any of the quarterbacks of the Senior Bowl the year that he was down there.
This is a great catch right here. I remember watching this one live, and his body control and adjustment here, fighting through contact, being able to come down with that ball inbounds is pretty impressive.
Nice catch over contact. The middle. You taking a hit. That. You know, see him catch the ball. Trying to find him.
Do we know his height and weight? Do we know his size?
I can pull it up.
5'11", 195-ish.
It's not bad.
Just pulled it up. I'll pull back up his draftable chart because it was 5'11", almost 6 foot, 193, 98 percentile broad.
Look at that.
Can we play that one again, Tucker? Because that's a quick little. That's very much and I'm not making a comparison of players, but we've talked about this a lot. We talked about it on Outside the Trenches today about with Tyreek, how he could just take a simple 5-yard catch and pick up 25, 30 yards. And that's the kind of explosiveness that you're seeing from this play right here. That's why we talked about Patrick Mahomes maybe had to work a little harder this year because he couldn't just throw a quick pass to Tyreek Hill and he runs for 9 yards. They've had to work a little bit harder for, to be the number one scoring offense again in the NFL this year. But
it's a 3rd and 4 as well. Being able to make that happen on a third down play.
So this year, this is something the Chiefs have done with Juju Smith-Schuster. But instead of being a 30-yard gain, it's a 12-yard gain because he's not as fast, but he's physical and hard to bring down. So they've been running those type of plays with him. Toney just brings an entirely different level of athleticism to that.
He just ran right past Trevon Diggs.
Yeah.
Like
the stutter step right around. Here's another. Should be a good one here, judging by the angles.
It's a skill set that you're not going to find from a player in the 3rd round. Like, and we just talked about it. Like, essentially a 4th round pick, top half of the 4th round.
So yeah,
I mean, if this is a player you're going to get consistently day in and day out, right? Like this 100% the trade's worth it. If you're getting this guy, I mean, I know this is his best game, so you can't expect it all the time. But some of these things, if you're just getting 1 to 2 of these plays that we're seeing in here, here's a Wildcat quarterback. You're getting these plays that you see. Nice finish to the run.
Maybe Andy Reid saw that play and said, "Hey, hang on, wait a minute."
Yeah, you're just hoping you get a couple of these, get him in the open field. I mean, look at that play right there. It goes for 10 extra yards than it should have, and 10 extra yards than it would with any player on the Chiefs offense right now. So like, if you get this guy, if he's healthy and you get this guy, then the 4th-ish round pick and 7th round pick for this kind of stuff makes a lot of sense. Like it really will work. You just have to hope that he can get on the field get to this point, and then the Chiefs find the right ways, which you trust Andy Reid to do so, to utilize him in those instances.
We don't need to watch Saquon Barkley rookie highlights.
Made me sad.
Maybe we do. No, I'll find some more highlights that we can watch of Kadarius Toney. Maybe some college stuff as well. But that was his best game. 189 yards, I want to say, in that game. So he had himself a day against the Dallas Cowboys, which not a slouch of a defense either. Going with you saw Diggs in a lot of those plays as well. So looking good for Kadarius Toney. When you can get him on the field, that seems to be the best. If you're just now watching, thank you for tuning in, and make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Chiefs trade for Giants wide receiver Kadarius Toney. They trade a third and a sixth, the third round comp pick for Ryan Poles. We talked about basically a fourth rounder, so we've already worked that sucker down.
I wonder what you guys are going to be talking about on the lab tonight. He's got the KC laboratory going live tonight.
Potential defensive players to add. We'll obviously be hopefully with the time here between going to go back through and look at Kadarius Toney and just kind of see, how he grew with his first year in the league. He hasn't played much this year, but as a rookie, what did he look like? How different was it than what we saw at college? Because he definitely had some questions coming out of college about what he would look like as a receiver. See if he kind of improved on those. We just saw in those highlights there, like he's clearly a great athlete, even at the NFL level. So what does that just kind of, how does it all look like? So I imagine that will come up tonight on the KC Laboratory.
Yes, indeed. And that will be at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. You can find the KC Laboratory here on this same YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe so you can find that channel. We're going to have more content coming out as well. I got KCS an updated conversation with Sports Radio 810's Joshua Briscoe. We focus a little bit more on the defensive ends after the Robert Quinn trade. So don't worry. We talk about the defensive end side and who the Chiefs could possibly go after. That will be up soon on the YouTube channel. BJ, you got something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add this because we talked earlier about, the contract, $1.9 million next year, $2.5 million in 2024. This was last offseason. I'm just going to run through some names real quick. And these were some of the contracts given out to free agent wide receivers. So if you don't bring him in, you're losing everybody except for, again, Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Sky Moore being the only receivers that you had under contract beyond this year. So you're looking at contracts like this to get a guy in free agency, unless you're counting on the draft. I think we can all assume you're not getting a talent like that in the fourth round, basically the fourth round in the draft. Christian Kirk, $18 million a year. DJ Shark, $10 million a year. Cedric Wilson, $7.35 million a year. Zay Jones, $8 million a year. Mike Williams, $20 million a year. Michael Gallup, $11.5 million a year. Braxton Berrios, $6 million a year.
My guy.
Russell Gage, $10 million a year. The wide receiver contracts for free agency, granted, love those guys, get paid, get your money, great. But from a roster composition standpoint, would you rather have Kadarius Toney under contract for 2.5 years for a total of less than $5 million or give Braxton Berrios $6 million a year? Or any of those other guys, like Michael Gallup, $11.5 million. Cedric Wilson, 7.3. This is a very low risk, high reward type move. Just more context to that.
Absolutely.
No, it is. And I think it also goes back to it's similar concept as the Chiefs trading for Melvin Ingram last year after not wanting to pay him as much as the Steelers did in the offseason. Different positions, a little bit different situations, but when you're considering the amount of money being spent, it might be more worth it to use the draft capital to acquire a player on that much money than it would be just to straight up pay them that much money in the offseason, especially in years where you're going to have some extra draft picks. Because while the Chiefs don't have a ton of picks now, 10 isn't a ton. It's still a couple extra. And I mean, what are you going to do with 12 picks in an NFL draft? You can't get 12 new players to make an NFL roster, especially one that's good. You're already going to use them anyway for something. Using 2 of them for a player of this talent who's still only, I believe, 23, maybe 24 years old right now. There's a lot worse things you can do with a 3rd and a 6th round pick going into the next season.
Absolutely. A lot of questions in here, like this one from 88 Flexen with about 3.2 mil left. Is that enough for Sue, or do you think there's a defensive move coming? It would be interesting to see what the Chiefs do with the remaining cap space. They have made some cap space with some moves that they've made. I think I saw Matt Derrick made a tweet about, Frank Clark missing those 2 games frees up almost, I think it was 80 or 800,000 worth of game checks for them to be able to use this year too. So a little bit of a gift to the Chiefs front office there. So I'm going to be interested to see what they do. I don't, again, Maddie, as we mentioned already, don't anticipate or expect anything to happen from the Chiefs, but
Right.
that seems like when they seem to do something is when you least expect it.
Yeah, and that's where we're kind of at right now. I think there's a couple, rumors and tweets floating around that the Chiefs might not be done, but I mean, no one's going to say they are done entirely.
Right.
So
Yeah.
not expecting any more moves. My eyes are definitely on McCole Hardman. I'm just intrigued to see if they're going to keep everyone together or they're not. I'm not saying they should move away from McCole Hardman right now. You don't know if Tony's healthy, doesn't know the offense. McCole coming off a great game. Do you really want to lose that guaranteed success on those plays and the timing and everything that goes involved? But also, he's coming up on a contract year. If you don't plan on having him back next year, what's the return coming? If Kadarius Toney went for a 3rd and 6, what is McCole Hardman going for? He's been significantly more productive in the NFL. He doesn't have the same contract benefit, but he's been more productive in the NFL. It's just, I am interested to see if there is another move that follows something like that, because it might just make a little bit more sense in the grand scheme of things if they get a little bit more investment coming back or capital.
My guess is people that don't like this move were dead set on Brian Burns or a defensive player, or just it kind of surprised them, be like, wait, what are you talking about? But the more you step back and look at it and you look at the contract, you look at the wide receiver market, you look at who's under contract for the Chiefs at wide receiver, all the stuff that we've been talking about, it starts to make a whole lot more sense. And again, anyone who isn't a fan of this move, the first time he gets an open space or takes a 5-yard catch and runs for 40 yards, you're like, all right, I'm into this now. Like, I'm good.
Right.
You gave Patrick Mahomes another weapon and a skill set that they don't really have right now. Even though McCole and him still fast, explosive players, it's a different level with both those guys, and they can use them in different ways. So I think it makes all the sense in the world. And to Tucker's point, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to have plenty more content. Lab guys will be going live tonight, breaking everything down. We'll have Derek Johnson, the Chiefs' all-time leading tackler, will be joining us for video tomorrow, breaking out some of the cover zero that we've seen from Steve Spagnuolo and the defense over the course of the season. So we'll have DJ, Mike DeVito, and Craig Stout will be breaking down the defense. A lot of really cool content we've got going on here at KC Sports Network, about 17 months old as a company. We appreciate everybody who's been watching and supporting what we've got going on.
Absolutely. I want to talk about one more thing before we get out here. Jordan Schultz hopped on the Pat McAfee show, said the Chiefs wanted one more weapon, and there's a chance Kadarius Toney plays next weekend. So that's also something to keep your eye on. He quote tweeted Pat McAfee's tweet with his clip on his show. Said, definitely worth noting that the Chiefs loved Kadarius Toney coming out of the draft, felt like he was super electric talent that Patrick Mahomes would maximize. That speed next to McCole Hardman is yet another layer for DCs to scheme for. Again, just goes back to our point that maybe Andy Reid just wanted another toy to play with, wanted to do something else. He saw that Wildcat play that he did at the Giants and said, let's do some of that. Imagine him doing some of that. That'd be fun.
Well, and I think that's what it is, right? Like it's almost being used as a little bit diminishing to say a McCole Hardman-like role, because as a receiver, that's a lot of that. It's pinned on jet sweeps and behind the line of scrimmage, manufactured touches and stuff like that. But that's still a part of the offense. It shouldn't be looked down upon guys that can maximize that. And McCole Hardman's been great at that for the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney is a better athlete than McCole Hardman is. He's a more electric, he's a more dynamic player than McCole Hardman. That's not a knock on Hardman, it's just that's how good of an athlete Toney is. So even if it is just manufactured stuff, you take what McCole Hardman's been able to do in this offense. This is all going forward. This isn't this year. This is all just in the future. You take all those same touches and give it to a more dynamic player, you're still getting a very productive player, potentially even more. And that's not even anything to do with getting him in the wide receiver room and learning from these guys and seeing how he develops as an actual route runner and receiver. So there's plenty of potential there. It's just, there's definitely some causes for concern. And I think BJ nailed it too. People that are upset, myself that were a little included or more confused than upset, were probably more on the line of, I think a defensive end would go a lot farther of helping this team than another wide receiver would. So seeing day 2 compensation come out for a wide receiver, one that isn't exactly a polished wide receiver, it's just more of a weapon, is something that gave a little bit of pause right away. But as you start to talk through it and think about it, the move makes a lot of sense, not just for this year, no matter what happens, but also moving forward.
Yeah, there's a much higher likely scenario that sometime later in the regular season or in the playoffs, one of the play-by-play guys or color analysts goes, how the hell did the Chiefs get this guy on this team? Like, how did they pull this off? I think that's a much higher scenario than anything else that could happen. And you just watch his highlights, and doesn't have as much space as Patrick Mahomes and crew, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and Nagy and all those guys can get him and scheme him open. And I'm not surprised that he can play in a week and a half. You can package plays. He's run a screen before, you can run some package plays that they've got for him to mix them in. But yeah, this is an exciting thing. But yeah, I think more people are just confused than anything. But yeah, you break it all down, it makes all sense in the world.
Yeah, I think so too. And we started this episode, Maddie and I hopped on here. I told Maddie, I said, I'm a little confused by this, but at the end of it, I hope that you guys are the same way and you guys have made a little bit more sense of it. A lot of people in the chat talking about his health. I know it's a big issue. Best abilities, availability. I've said that probably 4 times already on this show. Love to see him get healthy. Love to see him play. A lot of people, saying that he didn't want to play for the Giants. Maybe he didn't. There was a new regime in there, not the same guys that drafted him. That could be a big difference. Maybe getting to a spot where he actually wants to be, can be good for everyone involved. I think it could be for everyone involved. And so I'm very positive about this.
One of the best offensive coaches in NFL history and the highest scoring offense in the league, like I think with the best quarterback to ever play. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him.
Yeah, a little bit. Before we get out of here, make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe button. We've got all kinds of content gearing you up for the trade deadline on November 1st. Maddie was going to be live with Craig Stout, Kent Swanson tonight at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. They are going to be talking more about this move and a lot of other things going on with the Chiefs. They don't have a game this week, so it's not a game preview episode. I almost said it was a game preview episode, but I forgot the Chiefs are on a bye week, so we can fully focus on every move that the Chiefs make from now until November 1st. I've got a conversation on KCSN Daily with Joshua Briscoe about the kind of diving deeper into the defensive end situation, kind of the market out there, what the Chiefs could do, what they could move around asset wise. And if, we want to see them move some assets for a defensive end out there. So we got all kinds of content gearing up for you, getting you ready for the bye week. So final thoughts, gentlemen, who wants to go first?
I'll do it. Yeah. I'll wrap it up. I think I'm still trying to wrap my head entirely around the move, right? Like if it's a move for the future, I think it makes a lot of sense. I would have preferred the Chiefs to do a little bit more, something that helped the team a little bit more this year. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think a defensive end would help this team a lot more than any wide receiver that was likely going to be moved right now. But for the future, if you're looking ahead, the move makes a lot of sense. Low risk, high reward. It's the type of player that Andy Reid throughout his entire career has maximized. So there's no better place for a guy of this skill set than with Andy Reid. I 100% get the logic. I have talked myself into the capital traded for him. While I still don't love it, not being as bad as I just initially thought off the rip. So I'm just kind of in a wait and see mode at this point in time for it. Don't love it. Don't hate it. But I think a lot of it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. I don't think it's they traded for Kadarius Toney, so they're obviously then not going to make a move on the defensive side. That could happen. And if it's anything like outside the trenches, the second we end this show, there'll be another trade for a defensive player. But I don't think it's an either or. I think it is a big picture, long-term type move. It's just we're all thinking in the short term. We're thinking the here and now, the trade deadline's coming up, not thinking who's under contract, all the things that we've been talking about since the show began. But I'm into it. I mean, obviously Andy Reid's going to have a plan for him, and you get that skill set in space. As long as he puts the ball in his hands, I think he's going to make enough plays that warrant the compensation given up for him, both financially and then as far as the draft capital. But yeah, we'll see if they add anything else to the defensive side. To your point, Maddie, be surprised if they didn't do something defensively now that it looks like they're kind of thinking that way. But if not, just puts more on Steve Spagnuolo to keep getting creative and dialing some stuff up to get some pressures.
Still have about 3. It's obviously hard to tell how much cap space they obviously have. These are all just our best guesstimations of over $3 million in cap space for them to still spend and mess around with. We'll be interested to see what they do. Chiefs trade for Giants wide receiver Kadarius Toney. They gave up a 3rd round pick, which really is close to a 4th round pick because it's in the comp round of the 3rd round, and a 6th round pick as well. Matt, BJ, thank you for joining me and talking about this pick, this live reaction show. Thank you everyone for watching all the way until the end. We appreciate everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because we got a bunch of content waiting for you there as well. So we'll go live the next time the Chiefs make another surprising move. So make sure you stay tuned as well. So we will talk to you later.